Have you ever stopped to think about who actually decides how much you pay for your mortgage every month? I mean, it feels like this huge invisible force, right? But the truth is, it all comes down to a decision made by just 9 people sitting in a room debating ideas that have a direct line to your bank account. So let's pull back the curtain and really get to know the people making these massive calls.
So who are they? Well, they're the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, or the MPC for short. And their entire job, really, is to set the UK's main interest rate. That one number ripples out through the whole economy and lands, you guessed it, right on your monthly mortgage statement.
And as of right now, October 2025, that magic number is sitting at 4%. This is the bank rate. It's the foundation that pretty much everything else is built on. But, getting to this point and deciding what to do next, well, that has been a real battle.
Yeah, it really wasn't that long ago that rates peaked at a pretty painful 5.25%. We've seen a slow retreat since then, with the first cuts finally coming in late 2024. But the journey down has been really slow, really cautious, and there's a reason for that. That caution is the result of a deep, deep disagreement inside the committee itself. And that disagreement, that is the heart of the story here. This isn't just about spreadsheets and forecasts. It's a genuine battle of economic philosophies. On one side, you have the hawks, and on the other, the doves. And their debate is what determines how fast or how slow those rate cuts actually happen. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the hawks. A hawk is an inflation fighter, above all else. Their number one fear is that prices will start spiraling out of control again. So they are more than willing to keep interest rates high, even if it slows the economy way down, just to be absolutely certain that inflation is dead and buried. And on the other side of the table, you've got the doves. A dove's main worry is the health of the overall economy. They're looking at things and thinking, hey, if we keep rates this high for too long, we're going to crush growth. Businesses will fail and people will lose their jobs. For them, a recession is a much bigger risk than a little bit of inflation. And you can really boil this whole thing down to their mottos. For the hawks, it's better to do too much when you're fighting inflation. For the doves, it's don't crush the economy. See? 2 totally different fears, leading to completely opposite ideas about what to do with your mortgage rate.
So, with that in mind, let's meet the key players. We'll start with Team Hawk, the members who are always on guard against rising prices. Leading the charge for this group is Catherine Mann. For the last couple of years, she has been, without a doubt, the most consistent and outspoken hawk on the committee. She's constantly warning that the inflation fight is nowhere near over.
I mean, just back in August 2025, she argued for a persistent hold. Now, that's hawk speak for let's not even dream about cutting rates yet. She sees signs that inflation could be sticky and wants to keep policy tight to just stamp it out for good.
Right there with her is Hugh Hill, who is the Bank of England's chief economist. You could say he provides a lot of the intellectual firepower for the hawkish argument, always stressing the need to be cautious.
And his argument, summed up just this month, is basically that the biggest mistake the committee could possibly make is to cut rates too soon or too fast, only to see inflation come roaring back. For him, it's way better to be patient now than to really regret it later.
All right, now for the opposition, Team Dove. These are the members who are looking at the cooling economy and saying, okay, the main danger has passed, it's time to give people some relief. And the leading voice for the Doves is Swati Dhingra. She's been arguing for lower rates for a long time now, basically warning that the economic medicine, those high interest rates, could end up being worse than the disease of inflation itself. She's convinced that the big global shocks that drove inflation up in the first place, soaring energy prices, all that supply chain chaos, those are fading away. And that means, in her view, the UK can safely lower borrowing costs now without doing all this unnecessary damage to the economy.
Backing her up is the committee's newest member, Alan Taylor. Even though he's new, he has very quickly and very consistently lined up with the Doves, arguing that policy is already way too tight.
And his singing is pretty clear. I mean, he's been voting for cuts almost since he walked in the door because he's worried about a potential recession. And here's the key part. He believes the long-term neutral rate, that's kind of the Goldilocks rate that isn't speeding up or slowing down the economy, should be around 2.75%. So at the current rate at 4%, he sees policy as way, way too restrictive and thinks there's plenty of room to cut. So you've got this determined group of hawks and an equally determined group of doves. So who breaks the tie? Well, it all comes down to the swing voters, the ones in the middle. First, you've got the governor himself,
Andrew Bailey. He's what you'd call a pragmatist. He isn't ideologically a hawk or a dove. His main goal is to just follow the economic data wherever it leads and try to build a consensus. And that, of course, makes his position incredibly powerful. And then there's Sir Dave Ramsden. He is maybe the most important bellwether on the whole committee. If you look at his voting record, you can see him shifting his position as the data changes. He's been a hawk, he's voted with the doves, and he's swung back to being cautious again. That makes him pretty unpredictable and absolutely critical to the final vote.
Okay, so we know the teams, we know the players. Let's bring it all together. How do these factions actually stack up? And more importantly, what does all this internal debate mean for the interest rate you're going to pay?
Well, this chart shows you the balance of power right now. As of October 2025, you've got 4 members leaning hawk, 3 leaning dove, and those 2 crucial swing votes right in the middle. I mean, the committee is on a knife's edge. A single person changing their mind can, and often does, change the entire outcome.
And this all brings us to the prediction. For the very next meeting in November, the hawks, like Mann and Pill, they're almost certainly going to vote to hold rates. The doves, like Thingra and Taylor, will vote to cut. The whole thing comes down to the swing voters, Bailey and Ramsden. And the prediction is they'll side with the hawks and vote to hold just to be extra cautious. But look ahead to February 2026. If inflation keeps cooling, the expectation is they will flip, join the doves, and finally deliver another quarter-point cut.
So the big takeaway is this. The general direction for interest rates is definitely down. Relief is on the horizon. But that battle between the hawks, who are terrified of doing too little, and the doves, who are terrified of doing too much, is going to determine the timing and the pace. And for anyone with a mortgage, that battle over just how bumpy the descent will be, well, that's everything.